Hey, welcome to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you to help you grow, develop, mastermind, and overall just enhance your real estate business. This show we do every Friday, and we're focused more so on the things that are a little bit more practical, a little bit more real world that you can go out and implement in your business today, as well as things you can implement tomorrow. But we want to do some things that we could do today that this weekend we could start putting into our real estate business to make it better. So every Friday at 12 noon, we do State of Real Estate. I'm John Carismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking about starting or enhancing your real estate career, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. You can also visit us online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Today we've got a great episode for you. We're live streaming right now on YouTube, on Facebook, on tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success, our Success Center. Folks, if you're not subscribed to the Success Center already, go there right now and put your email in. That way you get automatic updates, not only of all these live streams that we do, but also the articles that we post and everything that we send out to help you grow and develop your real estate business. So today we're talking about building a real estate team. Building a real estate team. And now this is something that has caught on a lot more in recent years. You're definitely seeing a lot more teams in the real estate space now than you did before. And the reason is people are starting to realize that it's a good thing to do. That it can help your real estate business. Why does this help your real estate business? Why consider building a real estate team? Make sure I'm all nice and straightened out, prim and proper for you guys. Why would you consider doing a real estate team, building a real estate team? Well, let's talk about the argument against a team first. So the argument against a team, or this whole kind of concept of sharing, is not liking to share. They have a word for that. It's called greed. So, and you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can hold you back. If you look at not just in the real estate space, but in any place, there's a term you might have heard before called a solopreneur. Not an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. So a solopreneur, that solo concept, meaning one, is just one individual, one person that's in charge of everything, that's in charge of their entire business. And yes, even when you're underneath a broker, as a sales associate or broker associate under another broker, you could still be considered a solopreneur. Because, I mean, let's be honest, that broker really isn't probably doing much for you. Maybe they have a little bit of administrative support for you, but ultimately what you're doing, it's just you. So that makes you a solopreneur as opposed to an entrepreneur. Now, most people start out as a solopreneur, and that's perfectly fine. It's really almost impossible, unless you have a ton of money and a ton of experience, to move right into that more business type role. Last week we were talking about the difference between career and business. Business is going to be the ultimate, more kind of like machine that helps you scale your business even further, whereas the career is what you got to work in, where you got to grind it out to get the business, to get it moving, to get some cash flow, to get some income, to provide the service it is that you're providing to your clients. So that's our argument against it, being a solopreneur. And with the solopreneur, they want to keep all the money. Now, they can make quite a bit of money. I mean, there's tons of solopreneurs that are making over 6 figures a year. And it's not just in the real estate space. Maybe you're in another licensed profession or another kind of specialized profession, whether it be an attorney or a doctor or an accountant. These are all spaces where you can make a nice chunk of money. You can make upwards of 6 figures. And you could do that all yourself, relying 100% on yourself. Now, you're going to be probably burning yourself out, though, because you're going to hit a plateau. So the concept of burnout, and I'm not the only person to say this, but with burnout, it's not necessarily because you're working too much, but maybe because you're not aligned with your purpose. So when you can align yourself with your ultimate major purpose, it doesn't even feel like work so much. Now, getting back to this team concept, and so that's the argument against the team, is that, I could do it all myself, and I'm the best one. And usually these solopreneurs, they are the best ones. Robert Kiyosaki, if you've read any of his book, there's one called the cash flow quadrant, I think it is. But he's describing basically this quadrant. And you have the employee, the self-employed, the business, and the investor. Now, the self-employed are where pretty much all. That's exactly what a solopreneur is when you consider yourself to be self-employed. Now, that's great because you can make a ton of money, and the self-employed people, the solopreneurs, they're usually the best at what they do. So when you personally are looking for some sort of service, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a lawyer, an accountant, or a realtor, the best service for you as a client is going to be with a solopreneur, with a self-employed person. Now, the issue with this is when this person starts to get overwhelmed and they're maybe dealing with more business than they can handle, that's where their clients begin to suffer. But when they could kind of optimize this and they have the right amount of workload, you're going to get the best service. And as a solopreneur, as a self-employed individual, you're providing the best service you really can. And there probably isn't anybody that does it better than you. But does it really have to be that best service? Does it really have to be 1,001%? Or can you get away with 100%? Most people are going to be happy with 100% quality because that's still really good. Maybe it's not the very best. Or you know what? Maybe shoot for the stars and make your team the best. We're going to be talking a lot about the team building concept. So that's the solopreneur. That's really the antithesis to this team concept. The opposite, the other end of the spectrum to this team concept is just working for yourself. And now the benefit with this is you get all the money yourself. So you have 100% margin here. 100% going to you. I mean, you'll have some other costs. So it won't be 100%, but you're not having to pay anybody else. So that's good to start out. Get the cash flow building up. But now, rather than just taking that cash flow and just dumping it into a new swimming pool, a new house, a fancy vacation, or all these other kind of things that people like to purchase, which are great little luxury things. But what happens when you put that money there? You got to go back and you got to work to earn that money again. So when we make that distinction between the career and the business, because real estate is really both. You start a career and you're building a business. And eventually you'll get to the point, you could get to the point, you won't always get to this point, but if you play your cards right, you could get to the point where you've built a business where it's automated and you have a whole system in place. But at the solopreneur level, that's not happening. Because what happens now when you go on that vacation? Yeah, it's great to reward yourself, go on the trip that you're taking or whatever it is, but when you're away from your business as a solopreneur, as the self-employed individual, you don't have any more money coming in at this point. When it's 100% reliant on you, yes, you get 100% of the profits. But when you take a vacation, if something happens to you, you fall ill, maybe you can't work as hard, something, because you're not indestructible. As much as you'd like to try to make it, you're not. And this is kind of touching into this next part we're going to talk about with time. But you're going to eventually kind of hit that wall where you can't go any further, and maybe that wall just shows up. So maybe you get to the point where you plateau, or maybe you go on vacation and you just take a huge dip in your sales. So building a team, this is now more so on the business side of things, where you're building the business. You start the career to build the business. And now the career is funding building this business, because you can't start off right away as a business. It's going to take some time to get there unless, like I said, you have significant business experience as well as the money and capital to invest to make that business occur. So you're going to find yourself at that point where you're ready to make the shift, when you're ready to kind of move into that role now more so as a business and running a business. Now, there's different skill sets that are required when you're running a business as opposed to when you're in the career. Yes, being a licensed real estate agent, being a realtor, being whatever it is that you're calling yourself, being just a salesperson, take real estate out of the equation altogether, there's a particular set of skills that you need to perform that job. But then when you want to take it to the next level, when you want to move up and escalate up, there's again more skills that you're going to need. So when you get to that next level, or when you're ready to move to that next level, there's all kinds of things like managing your team, making sure you're picking the right people, identifying the things it is that you actually do need to do. So today's show, what we're going to be focusing on really is moving from that career side, the solopreneur side, into the business side. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not where you hit the light switch and boom, you're automatically moved into a business. It takes time, and you're going to slowly be transitioning. You start adding in more business stuff and more business stuff and more business stuff, and you start moving more and more over to the business side rather than the career side. And this is really a win-win situation, because if you're doing your job effectively, meaning that you're growing and developing your team, you're going to be giving them an opportunity to start learning the trade so they could do that someday and they build their own business. Now, this is some of the stuff that you're going to have to grapple with. So that's what today's show is going to be focusing on. We're talking about growing from a career into a business, specifically with real estate, but a lot of these topics we talk about can apply for anything where you maybe find yourself as a solopreneur and how you could kind of grow and develop yourself into that business role. So stick with us. I'm John Christmas, State of Real Estate. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of the specifics to get you from that self-employed, solopreneur, career type of role into the business role. When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment. Need help preparing for your exam? We've got you covered. Join us for a structured weekend review class where we'll cover the topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams. Class sizes are limited, so reserve your seat now by calling 813-928-0106 or registering online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Have you been thinking about starting a real estate career, but are struggling to find the time to go back to school? Allow us to introduce our revolutionary online course platform. At the Tampa School of Real Estate, we have used our years of education experience and student feedback to bring you the finest and best online course. Visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, or call us at 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106 to learn more and register for our online course today. After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career. Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Chrismo, and every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you to help you grow and develop your real estate business. Because real estate is really a knowledge game. It's really about knowing as much as you can, and not just knowing it, but implementing what it is that you know. And today we're talking about a really transformative topic to go from where you're starting out in real estate, you're starting on the career side, to move into the business side. And that's really the key foundation of being able to kind of build an effective team, is to understand the need for this team and understand the two kind of roles of the career, where you're basically trading your time for money, to a business where you're investing in building a system, a machine that handles real estate transactions. And the key with this is, because if you think of any sort of machinery, sure, it is maybe something that automates something that can be done. And this is the big topic that you're hearing about a lot in the news now, with the automation coming in and whatnot, and how this is taking away manual labor jobs and whatnot. With the manual labor jobs, yeah, those are going to go by the wayside. But you still need people to kind of run and grow these machines. And we're going to continue to move at a higher and higher level. There's always going to be people on top that are running this. I don't care how advanced. Now, when it starts to get more advanced than that, who knows if that will ever happen. But they say it does, and that's maybe more so that gets into it. But that concept of being able to run the machine, that's what your role comes into play with this year. And just to touch on this topic with real estate, there hasn't really been anything that's been able to fully automate the real estate process. It's still very much a people and relationship type of business. I say all the time, to turn a contact into a contract, you need the R, which is the relationship. So you have to build that relationship between you and your clients. And really, when you're thinking about this in the business side, you want to build a machine that kind of fosters this relationship. And that could literally be a machine. It could literally be a computer and programs and software and apps that do that to a certain degree, that assist you in doing that. They're not going to do it on their own. You have to, again, control these systems. But also implementing the people part into this. So you're not just the solo entrepreneur. So there's other people that you know, that you trust, that you could rely on to be part of your business. And it ends up being a win-win situation. You're growing and developing them, because a lot of times when people try to start a team, and where this all kind of falls apart is they don't have the skills necessarily to truly manage the team. When problems start to arise, when customers start to complain, clients start to complain, and maybe there's some sort of issue, there's some sort of problem in the machine. It's not a matter of just saying, oh, this machine is garbage and throwing it away. It's a matter of getting in there, fixing it, especially when it's a machine that has a lot of investment. So that's what we're going to talk about building. But before we talk about building that, we have to identify what the need is for this, and when we're making that transition from the career into the business role. So what I want to talk about specifically, and this is a little bit more of a exercise that you would do with yourself. You don't have to do it right now. Or you can do it right now if you want. I don't care. Write down the things that you're good at. You want to start off, and not even if you're writing, I recommend writing it down, but I mean if you're just going to think about it, but think about the things that you're good at. Now, in the self-employed, in the solopreneur role, it's probably going to be everything. You're like, oh, well, I'm good at everything. Yeah, I'm pretty amazing. I'm good at everything. I believe you, but now what are the things that you're best at? If you were to pick your best qualities, your best traits, your best skills, really, what are those? And what is it that is the most rewarding for you? Because typically, even if you are good at everything, everything isn't rewarding. If you're good at everything, especially if you're more good at the sales side, the relationship side of thing, maybe paperwork isn't so much your thing. And we're going to be talking about a different type of personality assessment you could use when you're building your team to kind of help narrow in on these traits. But usually when you're on the sales side, you might be able to do paperwork, but paperwork's probably not your favorite thing to do. But on the reverse end of that, maybe people that aren't so good with sales, maybe they just love paperwork. They love crunching numbers. They love analytics. They love kind of tweaking little things. But when it comes to people, they're like, maybe not so much. And there's personality tests to really test this, not only on yourself, but on your team, because you have to identify your strengths as well as your weaknesses. And you got to be honest with yourself. Okay, yeah, I'm best at these things, but these are the things that I'm not so good at. And those things that you're not so good at, that's where the team starts to come into play. Because you don't want people in there doing the same thing it is that you do. You don't want an exact duplicate of yourself that has the exact same strengths as you, because that's not complementing you. Then you just end up competing with them and trying to end up, it gets reckless there. We don't want it to get reckless. We want to be very practical and very skillful in finding somebody that complements the things that we're not so good at. So maybe you're great at sales, but you're not good at paperwork. And this applies even to people that are new to the real estate industry, even still on the career side. If you've just got your license and you're just starting out, you could still kind of utilize some of these team concepts where you're focusing on the things that you're good at, and you find somebody on the things that aren't so good at. So maybe you're not a people person. That's fine. Maybe you're better at the paperwork. The real estate sales process takes so many different skills, and it's such a long, drawn-out process with so many different requirements throughout the arena of it, even if you just have another person there that you're partnered or you're teamed up with. And it doesn't have to be a big crazy team. You don't have to have your own office. You don't have to have any like fancy anything. You could just be, and it's like, hey, look, I think we'd make a really good pair. Let's get together. You handle the paperwork, I'll handle the sales, or vice versa, whatever it is that your skills are. So that's really the first thing, to identify the need for this team, is to figure out what it is that you're good at, and also the things that you're not so good at, because then you take those things that you're not good at and you try to pair those up with somebody. Now, what you want to do for trying to figure out, once you've identified the things that you're not so good at, you want to create some roles. So you want to basically identify the things that are expected out of your counterpart or counterparts if you're building a much larger team here. You want to find the things that you aren't good at, and then you want to define that into a role. Okay, these are the duties that you're going to be in charge of. And you give them ownership and responsibility for these different areas. Yes, overall it still falls on you, especially if you're the team leader, if you're the ultimate one kind of in charge of this team, it still falls on you. But you still want to delegate some of that responsibility for these items, because if you delegate that responsibility for them, that gives them more of a chance to grow and develop themselves, because they're now taking ownership of things, and they'll be able to take on larger ownerships, and they'll be a much more integral part of your business in what they can accomplish for you. But that all starts with identifying what it is. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to have you do odds and ends stuff, when I need something, I'll just give it to you, because number one, there's no predictability in that. And now, especially if this is somebody for like the paperwork side, the analytical side of the business, they're not going to like that, because those types of people like predictability. They like knowing everything that's going on. And when the roles are clearly defined of, hey, these are the things that I need to do, I could kind of arrange these and sort them all out and figure out how I could best accomplish these tasks. But you have to start off making clear roles. So you figure out what you're good at and make your roles for what you're going to contribute to the business. But the things you're not so good at, your weaknesses, those are the things where you have to create the roles for and then try to find somebody to fill those roles. So let's figure out some ways now, once we figured out the skill set, because that's definitely one of the key parts, is figuring out, hey, you're going to be in charge of doing these things. You need to find somebody that can accomplish those things. But now you need to make sure that those types of things that they need to do align with the type of person that you're looking for. Because just because you like somebody doesn't mean that they're going to be great in that role, in that position, especially if you've clearly defined the things it is that they need to do. And I don't care who it is that you're talking to. Yeah, maybe they could deal with it if you're just giving them random things that you need them to do, little to-dos every now and then. Maybe they could figure it out, but it's not going to be the best type of situation. You're not really making a fine-tuned machine, which is the ultimate goal with this, to create a fine-tuned business, a fine-tuned machine that really kind of cranks out and just goes. So, like I said, you could kind of do some personality testing and whatnot to figure out this type of person that would fit good for this year. So there's one that's kind of my go-to that I use whenever I bring anybody into any of my organizations, and it's called the DISC Personality Assessment. And now there's a lot of different ones out there, but what I like about the DISC Personality Assessment is it really, and now it's not perfect. None of these personality assessments are perfect, and I usually use a couple of them. But this is usually my first go-to that at a quick glance gives me a lot of information. And this is something great you could use even in the sales side of things, is these DISC assessments, because really it breaks people up into 4 categories, D-I-S-C. The D's, the I's, the S's, and the C's. And the D's and I's tend to be kind of similar, and the S's and the C's tend to be similar. And you don't have somebody that typically will fall into just one. The way this test works, you answer a couple questions. I mean, there's some where you kind of number rows and stuff like that. But ultimately, you end up, again, kind of like with a spectrum, and you'll have some traits here, but maybe most of your traits are in this category. And so this is really effective for kind of understanding the person it is that you're working with, that you're dealing with, that you need to do these certain types of tasks. Because if you realize your tasks are more administrative, you don't want a D or an I type of personality. So let's talk about the D type. The D type of personality, the best way to kind of describe this is dominant. The dominant personality, the doer. The one that gets tasks done, that's just kind of real matter of fact about things, and just, okay, I need to do this, check it off, boom, we're done. And now the D type of personality, these people make great leaders, but they're maybe not visionaries. The D's are the people that are doers, that get things done. The I's, these are more inspirational. So D stands for dominant, I stands for inspirational, and you'll see a lot of different terms that are associated with these different letters here, but typically my default for D is going to be dominant, and I is going to be inspirational. These are the people that are the visionaries, that could think for the future, and they could imagine the future of what this machine, what this business is going to look like, how it's going to serve clients, but the actual getting things done, the things that the I's lack are going to be follow through. So the D, they don't necessarily, the D type of trait, and again, people have a mix of these. You're not just going to be one of these traits. You might have a high, most people do usually have a high in at least one or maybe two of these different traits. But the D, where the D lacks, is the dominant type of personality can't really think forward as much as the I does. But the problem with the I is maybe they think forward too much and they don't have enough follow through. They're thinking about the next best thing before they finish their current thing. And you might have heard the concept of a serial entrepreneur. And I don't like the term of serial entrepreneur. It makes me think of serial killer, which, that's already a bad association to begin with. But if we think of that word serial, whether it's a serial killer or a serial entrepreneur, they're really the same thing. It's either you're killing people or you're killing businesses if you're a serial entrepreneur. It is that you don't necessarily have the follow through. And these serial entrepreneur types of people, these are going to be the I's, the inspirational, visionary type of people that have great visions and great plans for things, but maybe they never follow through with those actual plans. Maybe you have somebody, because a lot of people that are D's tend to be I's as well. You can look at percentages of the population for all these, and the D and I typically do go together, because in order for it to make your vision come true, that's where you need to have the follow through, and that's where your D skills kind of come into play, the dominant skills. So you want to look at these different traits, the dominant and the inspirational. These are not people that are typically going to be good with paperwork or good with scheduling things or good with setting stuff up, which that's really a crucial key role to any sort of business, is making sure that the more kind of administrative task is really what those could be summed up as. And that's typically not your D and your I types of personalities. Now, where those administrative tasks might come more into play, these are your S and C types of personalities. The S, these are going to be your people that are more people-oriented. So I like to think of sensing people. These people are really good with feelings. I'm terrible with feelings. My own feelings, other people's feelings, and realizing what's going on. Yeah, I could figure it out for the most part, but it's not my strong point. It's not one of my skills. And you might find yourself in that arena as well, or maybe on the reverse end, maybe you're really good at connecting with people. There's all these different levels of intelligence when you're dealing with different types of people. It's not just one type of IQ. They're really, for all these different types of skills, there's going to be people that are more skilled in these particular arenas. And you could all have very successful people if they're matched with the right types of task for what it is that really kind of livens them up, really. So these sensing type of people, these are really good for dealing with people. The S types of personalities, they're great with customer service because they could really connect with people and understand people. So that's like your S. That's where the people that need to deal maybe a little bit more with the people. Maybe people that need to build rapport a little bit. Those are usually good as an S. And now, again, you could have all these different types of combinations. Maybe it's an I and an S. The inspirational and the S. Now, the inspirational types of people, these are usually your very outgoing people. D and I tend to be extroverted traits, whereas the S and the C tend to be introverted traits. But you could have maybe an I and an S. If you're an I and an S, you maybe are a little bit more outgoing and you do have a vision and whatnot, but you also are really good at connecting with people. And these types of people are the ones that make great salespeople. The people that are buyer's agents or seller's agents, the people that are out there building rapport with clients, they're great at that. Well, that's one of the claims to fame for the S type of personality, is they're great at building rapport with people, because they connect with people very well, especially when they have the I trait in there as well, because the I trait, that's maybe more so with these people, are going to be a little bit more funny. So if people think you're funny, not just you think you're funny, but other people think you're funny as well, because if other people don't think you're funny, you probably don't have this S trait. But if other people think you're funny, you're connecting with them, and then maybe you also have a little bit of the I in there as well. There's so many things that these kind of tie into, and it's really great that you have these 4 buckets that you can kind of categorize people as, because not only for building your team, but also when you're dealing with clients, you could figure out what it is that they are, what type of personality they have, and understand how to best present to them. Because the D's and the D type of personality and also the C type of personality, which we haven't talked about yet, they're more into your details, your charts, your graphs, and things like that. So I definitely recommend looking into this DISC stuff more. Now, the last one I just want to touch on here is the C personality, the 4th major personality. The C personality, these are going to be your controllers. The people that want to have everything dialed in and want everything to be perfect. The perfectionist are really what the C is. Now, the problem with the C is this concept of analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, where basically you end up freezing because you're trying to analyze so many different factors. You're trying to analyze so many different things that you end up not pulling the trigger on anything. You figure a bunch of stuff out, but you just get overwhelmed by the data because you don't know everything. And that's one of the key things in business, that you're not going to know everything. Now, a part of this kind of team building concept is that you're taking a risk. You're bringing people into your organization, especially when you're coming from that solopreneur type of role, and you're very proud of I'm hesitant to call it a business, but you're proud of the service that you provide. When you're proud of that service you provide, you're bringing somebody else in, you're taking a risk. And risk is when you're giving up something that's known for something that's unknown. That's really the best way to kind of categorize any type of risk. You're walking away from something that you know to take on something that's unknown. Whether that's you're starting a new career, you're starting a business, you're doing something where it's unknown and you're not going to know everything in the future. So you can imagine if you're in the C type of role where you want to know everything that's going on, there's these unknown factors on there with no matter how hard you try, you're not going to know everything that's going on. You're not going to know what tomorrow holds every single day. You don't have a crystal ball. And that's what the C would be the most productive person in the world. The C's would be unstoppable if they had a crystal ball, because they would just know everything then, and then everything would be very easy because they know. So those are your 4 different personality types. And I definitely recommend researching them more because there's whole books written about them. There's all kinds of tests you could find online for these different tests and whatnot. And like I said, I use these whenever I bring anybody into any of my organizations. I use one of these DISC tests to really kind of figure out, at the very least, what they are, who they are, what type of person they are. Now, you might have heard the term, don't judge a book by its cover, which I agree with. You don't want to just judge somebody by their appearance or anything like that. But you say, oh, well, why would you want to categorize them in these one of categories here? Well, this DISC test, you're not judging the book by its cover, but you're at least getting the genre of the book. The DISC test, the DISC personality test, is telling you what type of book it is, what type of person it is. Now, there's going to be different details. Not all the books of a certain genre are the same, but you have certain expectations for books in a certain set of genres. So when you're dealing with people, again, you don't want to judge a book by its cover, but this DISC test will kind of tell you what type of person, what genre of person it is that you're dealing with. So that DISC test is definitely a must for any time you're bringing somebody into your team. Now, we're going to take another quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about how to compensate people in a team. Because that's one role. We're going to be talking about compensation, but then we're also going to be talking about the tracking and the automation. So the compensation that's really for you're kind of getting this stuff started, but then once you maybe have some people in this role, you want to kind of stay on track of them and make sure that they're doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing. That their task it is that you've set up for them, and you want to have accountability for this stuff, because if they're not doing the tasks that need to be done, that's a problem. That's a problem with this machine it is that you're trying to build. So we're going to be talking about the tracking aspect of this and how to make sure everything's kind of staying all nice and together. And we're also going to be talking about how to automate some of this stuff as well. Because with the technology we have today, you don't always need a person to do every single thing. There's so many ways to kind of automate a lot of these processes. But again, you're going to have people built into this as well. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. I'm John Kursmo, and you're watching State of Real Estate. When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment. Need help preparing for your exam? We've got you covered. Join us for a structured weekend review class where we'll cover the topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams. Class sizes are limited, so reserve your seat now by calling 813-928-0106 or registering online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Have you been thinking about starting a real estate career, but are struggling to find the time to go back to school? Allow us to introduce our revolutionary online course platform. At the Tampa School of Real Estate, we have used our years of education experience and student feedback to bring you the finest and best online course. Visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, or call us at 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106 to learn more and register for our online course today. After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career. Hey, if you like the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to State of Real Estate. I'm John Carismo. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you to help you mastermind and grow your real estate business. And I know a lot of you guys watch this that aren't even in real estate, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or our Success Center or anything like that. But a lot of the topics, especially topics we're talking about today, they're fundamental in any sort of business, not even just real estate. So what we're talking about today is building a team. We talked about the why you want to build a team, so you don't just end up being a solopreneur where you can kind of take yourself to the next level. That's the key behind the why you want to build a team. But we also talked about kind of identifying how to build this team, because you don't want to just start bringing people in. It's like, oh, I'm busy, I should start bringing some other people in. If you kind of just go about this all accidental and just kind of going with the flow, there's a really great adage about this whole kind of going with the flow. So you imagine, you've heard this term maybe before, oh, I just go with the flow, I'm breezy, I'm easy. That if you're going with the flow, imagine yourself going down a river. You're going with the flow down a river. You're in your little boat. You got some paddles in the boat there, but it's the current's taking you, so you're just kind of kicking back, relaxing, letting the current take you in this river. And you'll keep moving. You'll keep moving. When you're going with the flow, as long as the river's flowing, you're going to end up moving. So you're kicked back, hanging out in your little boat. You're going to the flow. All right, yeah, now things start to kind of pick up a little bit. You start to pick up a little bit. You start moving a little bit faster. This could happen if you're just going with the flow. If the current starts to move faster, maybe the market's going faster, something happening, you go with the flow, things start to pick up a little bit more. But now what happens? And if you've ever gone river rafting, or maybe even just familiar with rivers or something, as the current starts to go faster, there's a reason it's going faster. Because there's a drop coming up. Because there's a fall. Maybe you're sitting in this river, sitting in your boat here, and the water's picking up, you're starting to move faster, and you're like, oh, this is great. I'm not even really having to do much. I'm just going with the flow, taking it easy, letting the river guide me. And if you let the river guide you, you're eventually going to end up at Niagara Falls, and you're going to be going over the edge. And it's going to be tough to survive that. So you don't want to go with the flow. You want to control where it is that you're going. You got to take those oars out and do some rowing, because when you're 20 feet away from Niagara Falls, I don't care how many oars you have, you're not going to be able to turn yourself around. You're going to end up going over the falls. So you have to take control before it's too late. You can't go into this accidentally when you're trying to build a business and grow a business. You need to focus in and hone in on the things that you need to do and go about it very practically and very directed. Now, a lot of ways you can go about this. You could utilize other people's knowledge. That's what we do this show every Friday for, is to really kind of help disseminate this knowledge out there. Yes, we're doing some branding and some marketing as it goes here, but we're helping people by giving this knowledge out. And you want to find, you could tap in, we're in the information age now. It's so easy to find information, but you want to make sure it's the right information. But really, any information is better than no information, because you need to be making the right decisions and you need to be smart about these things for when you're hiring. Like I said, you want to utilize this DISC personality assessment. You want to use this testing. You figure out what it is that you don't need to do, that you don't like to do, that you don't want to do. What are the things you need a team for? Because if you could do everything and you're happy with that, you don't need a team. Yeah, you'll hit some ups and downs, but if you're happy with that, then you don't need a team. But if you do want to build a team, if you do want to build a team, you want to maximize your growth, you need to hone in on the things that you're not so good at. What it is that you're not good at. And this is going to be different for everyone. At the very simplest concept, if you're just starting out, like I said, if you're great at sales, you want to find somebody that can handle the not sales stuff. And this is very broad where I say just not sales stuff. You want to kind of dial in, okay, well, you need to prepare contracts. Maybe you need a marketing person as well. As you start to define these roles of these things that you don't know everything about, maybe you know everything at sales. Great, that's great. You're the one that should be in front of clients. But then maybe you're not so good with the paperwork, or you forget about paperwork, or you're not organized, or something like that. You find the things that you're not good with, and you try to track down somebody that is good for you. We got a question coming in from Juan, Puerto Real. I don't know if that's a real name or if that's kind of a real estate sound. I like it either way. So Juan, you're asking what the best structure to build a team is. So the best structure, I would say, as far as it goes for kind of structuring a team. So ideally, you're the captain of the ship. You're the one that's in charge of everything, and you want to keep an eye on everything, and you want to know how everything works, but maybe you don't know quite so much of the details with it. And that's okay. Now, the more you know about how this stuff works, the better you could be a leader with this here. But ultimately, your goal, your end final goal, and you might not be able to do this right away, your goal, if you're going to be the captain of this team, is going to be to grow and develop others. Because the more you grow your team, the more it's going to push you up on top of that. Yes, you're going to grow and develop some people, and yes, people are going to leave you. You have to prepare for that. You can't have all your eggs in one basket. If you just have one other person, or maybe just a couple people, maybe 2 or 3 people, and you're worried about, if I lose this person, my business is it's just going to fall out. It's going to be done for. I need this person. This person's a crucial role to my team. That you don't want to have that. It's okay to have people that contribute greatly to your team, but you need to have contingency plans because these people aren't going to stay with you forever. They're not. You're going to hit the point where they want to spread their wings and fly off. And I mean, really, you could think of this almost like you're the parent overseeing the children that you have, helping them grow and develop their business, using your skills and your knowledge to help grow them. Now, this is something that happens over time. When you're starting out, at the very least, start off with just maybe one other person that could kind of complement your skills. And then maybe you bring in another person that can complement another set of skills that you're not good at. And you start to kind of further deviate into these smaller and smaller roles, but as you grow a larger and larger business, it's okay to have these smaller roles. So, I mean, going back to the question about the best structure for that, I mean, really, you're the captain. And now if you don't have any intention of being the captain, not everybody wants to be the captain of the ship. That's why there's a lot of brokers out there, but not everyone's a broker. People that have had their license for 20 years, they might not want to be a broker because maybe they don't want to be the captain of the ship. It takes a lot to be the captain of the ship. Not everyone's cut out to be the captain of the ship. You could be, and maybe you're not cut out for it now, but that doesn't mean after experience and after increasing the knowledge on your part that you would be able to be a captain. You go to captain school, you go to figure out what it is that you need to do to grow and develop others. So if you want to have a team that's your team, that's the role you need to be in that growth and development role to help push your people forward. But if you don't want to be in that role, that's where maybe you're finding somebody else's team that you could play a part in, that you could bring your skills to the table with. But that's really where you want to kind of structure. You start it from the top, and then you start to kind of build in these different things. And if you don't ever see yourself in that captain role, you want to find somebody where you could maybe get into that role. Because, maybe you go join a team that's somebody else's team. But again, just like with your own team, you can't expect your people to stay forever. You maybe join that team to start learning some things. And when you're around greatness and other people that are doing and being who you want to be, that helps pull you up and pull you forward. And that's the type of culture it is that you want to establish with your team. And if you have somebody that doesn't contribute to that culture of your team, that maybe isn't a good fit for that type of role, that's where you have to be able to get somebody out of that role. If you're not willing to take somebody out of the role, and what I'm describing here is firing somebody basically, if you're not willing to fire somebody, you don't belong to be captain. And like I said, not everybody's cut out to be at that top of the ship type of role, the one that's running everything. You can be someday, But maybe you're not ready today, and if that's the point, then maybe you go join another team. But we're talking about building your team here, so let's focus more on that for building your team. The people that you want to put into these different roles, the key thing here is having a detailed plan about this. And when I say detailed plan, I don't mean super detailed, but you want to kind of identify the steps in the sales process. As you're going through with clients, because every team can be structured differently. There's no perfect formula for this. And if you're looking for a perfect formula for that, you're not ready for a team yet. Yes, there's maybe something you could kind of base some stuff off of, but ideally what you need to do is you need to know your business inside and out so you can kind of identify the key roles. And when you're working with clients, you go through and you want to start taking notes on the stuff. Okay, I did this. Okay, then I did this. Oh, I should have did this. Because you have to perfect what you're doing before you can kind of have a product or a service or that machinery that you can duplicate out with other people. You need to figure out what is maybe the best way to do this. And if you're not willing to find out the best way to do that, because maybe there's always going to be better ways to create a contract or draw something like that up or handle some sort of organizational side of something. And you might bring somebody in that's better at that. Or maybe you're better about the contracts and the organizational side, but you're not the best in the sales side of things. If you partner with other people that are good at those things, it's going to naturally make you better and you'll understand this better. Now the key thing, whatever role it is that you're in, is you want to understand the other roles in the team. And now there's a lot of people that are proponents against this, that say, no, I want to pigeonhole somebody. I don't want them to know what else is going on. They stay in their corner, they do this, and they don't know the rest of what's going on here. They don't need to know what this person is doing. They just need to focus on what they're doing. Well, there might be a better way to do something, and you don't want to kind of hold this person in and keep this person down and keep this person from being able to help you expand your team. What is Zig Ziglar, I think, you could get everything you ever wanted if you help enough other people get what they want. So you could get anything you want if you help enough people get what they want. So everybody wants something. You need to basically be making win-win situations here. When this goes to compensation, because I know I said we're going to touch on compensation, so let's talk about that. When you're starting out in building this team, you could structure the compensation in a couple different ways. Now, with Florida laws here, now I know we got a couple of guys watching outside of Florida here, so if you're outside of Florida, double check the laws there, although they are usually similar in this realm. But typically, in order to pay a commission to somebody for a real estate service, they need to have a real estate license. And what that breaks down to is if you want to have an assistant or somebody, and really this is where you kind of start off with this stuff, especially if you're the sales side, you get an administrative assistant. And for compensation, if you're compensating them based on real estate transactions, they need to have a real estate license. And they're another agent under your broker. And it's your broker that's having to pay them. And that's the Florida law that says that. If they're not a licensed agent, maybe they are a licensed agent, but they're not active with your broker, that won't work. You can't pay them any sort of bonuses, any sort of compensation that's based on real estate transactions. Now, you could definitely pay them a salary. You could pay them whatever hourly rate, wage or weekly wage or however it is that you want to structure it. Maybe you're just paying them for everything it is that they do. Maybe every advertisement they write in. And you don't even have to think of this in terms of just people that are right there in person working with you. The technology, again, solves a lot of these problems. Fiverr.com is a great resource for this. And now, you got to be careful because there's not always the best quality with some of that stuff on there, but there's some great sellers, great vendors, great people, great businesses on Fiverr that you could go in there, and there's a bunch of other sites that are just like it. You go in there and find things that you need. So this is a great way, especially when you're first starting out. And I've harped on this before about not spending too much time building your website or spending too much time designing your business card or your logo or anything like that. Unless you're a graphic designer and you're coming from that graphic design field, if that's the case, that's one of your strengths. You don't need to outsource that if that's your strengths. But if you're not coming from that graphic design field, you don't want to try to grapple with one of your weaknesses. That's where you bring other people in. Whether it's an actual assistant that you're bringing in, or maybe it's some online service that you're bringing in from maybe somebody that's working on the other side of the world. But again, the technology makes that possible for being able to structure your business in this way where you can take people from wherever they are and they could do these different services for designing your website, for designing your logos, for creating your advertising. And maybe that's something you just pay on a one-time type of basis. And when you're doing that, you're moving more from the career role into the business role. Like I said, you want to visualize this all as two different ways to categorize this, really. And now this is broad and simplistic, but you have the career side and you have the business side. The career side, this is where you're working. If you're designing the logo, that's a career activity. But if you're paying somebody to design your logo for you, that's a business activity. Ultimately, especially if you want to build this team concept, if you want to build an automated machine type of thing, you push it more into the business side and you keep pushing towards that direction. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time to get over into the business side of things. So, again, this all boils down to figuring out what it is that you're good at and delegating the rest. Whether it's delegating to somebody in person or you're getting some sort of service. Maybe you're doing advertising, and the advertising gets super complicated. There's so many different factors, especially with digital advertising, that comes into play with this. Yes, you could do it yourself. Yes, you could figure out a lot of stuff, but is that the best use of your time? Is that gonna translate to income today? Because this all relates back to doing something that's going to actually generate income. And yes, if you're maybe you do need a logo. And if you need a logo, or maybe you need a picture, or you need all these other things, yes, you need them eventually. And go back and watch the first 30 days episode if you're trying to figure out how to bootstrap yourself and start out. But as you start to get commission checks rolling in, you'll have opportunities to reinvest in yourself, aka reinvest. Hopefully you're reinvesting in the things that's going to turn that more into a business. And when you're able to do that, you could get more marketing. You could get more things done. You could start building on this team concept. One of the big expenses you'll have is, and whether this is a time expense or money expense, but that's out there getting new business. Going out there and making sure that you have a full pipeline. Going out there and making sure that you always have clients. Because especially if you have a team, one of the key roles you need to have, and this is role number one, whether you're a team or whether you're a solopreneur, your job number one is to keep a full pipeline. To keep a full list of potential clients so you can kind of work through them. If your list of potential clients starts to dip down, you're going to have a dip in sales. And this is especially because real estate, it's somewhat cyclical. And you'll see during like the wintertime, during December, during November, the business starts to kind of maybe tailor down a little bit. It starts to kind of slow down. There's still business to be had out there, especially when you consider the number of agents that are just taking the month off of December. So there's still business to be had there, but what if you give up on the prospecting, if you give up on your marketing efforts to generate new clients during that time, you're going to have a dip in your business. And when you have a dip in your business, it's not going to hit you right there because you're like, oh, it's December, that's what it slows down. That's where you really got to turn up the gas. And if you turn up the gas during this time, it's going to help propel you further even more when the business starts to pick up. Now you have this free time on your hands where it's not as busy. Maybe this is now maybe more so where you work on building the business rather than working in your business. So you have to plan for a lot of this stuff. And I say this planning concept a lot, but I'll be honest, I'm not a big planner myself. I think about things a lot. I think about all of these things going on and think about different strategies and better ways to do things. But very rarely, I think back in college, I maybe wrote some business plans, but I've never wrote a business plan for a legitimate business. Personally, I kind of think it's a waste of time. I mean, yes, there is some merit, and that being said, I do take notes and I write some stuff down as I think about it so I don't forget. But when I say planning, I'm just talking really about thinking about it and understanding what's going on. And when you start to understand the whole picture, this helps you kind of get the details a little bit better. So you definitely want to be thinking about these things, though. You want to think about what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then think of ways where you could implement other people to leverage other people's time. Because there's two commodities. Like I said, it's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money to get business. You could do it yourself. You could go out there and knock on doors, and that's costing you time. Yeah, you could do that. It's going to be free to go knock on doors unless you count the cost of your time. But we'll just think about that as time. It's going to take you time to knock on doors. Maybe you don't like knocking on doors. I bet you could find somebody that does. So maybe that's somebody that you bring into your team. You find the things that you have to realize the things that you need to do that are absolutely necessary for having a team. And then you bring in people that fill in those gaps that you can't or that you don't want to fill in this. And that's okay. I mean, yeah, you could, if you're working in the solopreneur, you're the self-employed side of things, then yeah, you pretty much have to do everything. But as you start to leverage others, it's going to cost you money to do that. But what's the part about building a good team and a profitable team is you're able to do this and still make a profit. So you can think of it this way. Let's put some numbers with this for the people that are going to be more analytical. Your C types of personality. So if this makes more sense to you, you might have a little bit of C in you, going back to our DISC stuff we were talking about. So let's say you make $100,000 that your profit as a solopreneur, as just a real estate sales associate, after your broker's cut, after your cost for advertising and all of your other expenses, that you generate $100,000. And then that's a great income, really, as a solopreneur. But you're probably not going to be able to get much higher than $100,000. Maybe you get into more higher end homes and you're able to push that number a little bit higher, but the amount of volume that you're going to be able to do isn't going to change because there's only so much time it is that you have. And yeah, you can work more hours, but what you're going to find is as you start to plateau, as you start to kind of hit that realm of, okay, yeah, I'm doing everything I can, I'm working on full cylinders, and you go through that long enough, you're going to start to feel burnt out because there's a better way. This is where you start, because you don't get more time. There's always more money to be had, but you're not going to be able to get more time. And this is kind of the whole concept of being able to clone yourself, to go out there and find other people that could complement you, that could do the things that you don't like doing. Or maybe, and there's a bunch of different ways. This is just one theory behind it. Maybe you get other people that are great at what you do, because it could work as well. It's not what I would recommend, but it's still something you could do. You could end up with somebody else, and I guarantee you're going to be able to make more. But let's figure as a solopreneur, you're getting $100,000 that's all going to you. If you build a team that could produce $1 million, but you're getting 20% of the $1 million versus 100% of the 100,000. 100% of 100,000 is $100,000. 20% of $1 million, however, is $200,000. So let that sink in. If you're doing everything yourself, that's just really 100%. You're going to hit that plateau where you can't go any further. But when you could leverage other people's time, you could put more time in the equation. That's where the sky becomes the limit. You could go out there and build a team, and if you're running and managing and growing that team properly, you could generate $1 million. Yeah, maybe you're giving up 80% of the money, which that's a big thing for a lot of the solopreneurs that they don't want to give up. They're like, no, I don't want to give up all the money. I'm going to make more money if I'm doing it all myself. Yes, you're going to get higher percentages, but the key thing is pushing that top line revenue, pushing the top line of money that's coming in, and you get that number up to $1 million. You 10x that, you get 10 times that. Yeah, you have to give up a big chunk of that, but if you keep 20%, even if you could keep 15% of that $1 million, you're getting $150,000. If you're just keeping 10%, I mean, yeah, you're breaking even. You probably want to shoot for a little bit higher than that because, what else is the point then, unless you're continuing to grow this for the future. But you want to focus on, like I said, what you could do to kind of expand this further, to grow this further. And you have to take some time to sit back and kind of look at your business, look at what's going on. That's why I recommend taking some notes on the sales process and what it looks like so you can go back and review that stuff. Oh, I should have been doing this. If I did this, this will save time. And when you have this down to a science, you can bring other people in to kind of fill into these little gaps in here for the things that you don't like. Maybe you're writing down all these tasks here and you're like, yeah, I wish I didn't have to do this. Oh, I love doing this, wish I didn't have to do this. Love doing this, wish I didn't have to do that. That's a really great exercise to figure out where you could maybe have an assistant. Because the key thing with building all this is defining the role. If you define the role, it makes it more predictable. And a great business, a great machine, is predictable. Computers are very predictable. At least Macs for that part. But the computers, you tell it to do something, a calculator, very predictable. You put a calculation in, it's going to be correct. It's going to solve it like that. That's what you want to do on your business. You want to be able to put a client in, produce commission out, and also produce a happy client out. Because producing that, if you're getting commission, but you're pushing out unhappy clients, that's bad for your business. It works now, but it's not going to work down the road. So you need to manage all these different things. And as the captain of this team, that's what you're in charge of. So that's this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I thank you guys for tuning in. See David Cribbs. David Cribbs, if you guys don't check out his show, what is it, Under Contract? Search David Cribbs, Under Contract. Check him out. He's got a great show. He does, I wish I could tell you which date it is, but check him out. He's got a great show. He was actually an alumni of the Tampa School of Real Estate. And of course, if you guys are thinking of starting your own career in real estate, visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. You actually see a video on there from David Cribbs of how he made 6 figures in his first year in real estate. You could do the same as well if you're willing to put in the work and if you're working smart. But until next week, again next Friday, 12 noon, we're going to have another episode of State of Real Estate. So I hope you guys tune in next week. I hope you're able to take away something from today to implement into your business this weekend or Monday or whatever it is. Implement it today. If you have the luxury of taking a weekend off, you're in a really good spot. But if you're not proud of where it is you're right now, you shouldn't have the luxury of taking the weekend off. I'm working this weekend. I'm doing a weekend review. We've got a couple more spots for this weekend review class we have this weekend. So if you're still trying to pass your state exam, I think we still have a couple more spots. I think we have like 2 or 3 seats available for that one. It's definitely going to be a full weekend this weekend, but I'm working all this weekend. I want to continue moving forward. You should be too. Till next week, I'm John Carissimo. Thanks for watching State of Real Estate.